Hey you guys, how are you doing? Today we're going to start recapping the manhwa, Vengeance from a Saint Full of Wounds. And I'm really excited about sharing it with you guys. I mean, it's got everything really. From a heart-throbbing romance to a gripping revenge plot, betrayal, fantasy, magic, well, you name it. Hope you love it as much as I do, and please, if you do, remember to like and subscribe. It really helps us be able to post more videos. So now, let's jump right into Lua's ordeal. We are introduced to a young Lua working as a magical healer in a temple. Apparently, she's an orphan and has been allowed to stay there in exchange for her helping to heal those who go to the temple for help. She's a candidate for Saint of the Temple, along with other young girls who also possess healing abilities. However, Lua's abilities have the particularity that they don't immediately heal the wounds, but rather, she transfers the wounds onto herself and then heals herself. This has made the other candidates for Saintess to really judge and shun her, calling her different and saying she's not a saint. After she heals a young child who was injured after a demon attack, she hears the other candidates bad-mouthing her when her best friend, Countess Ariane, comes to greet her all bubbly. She congratulates her for her job that day, hugging her and telling her not to mind what the other girls are saying of her. She even tells her that she's always going to be by her side. Yeah, we'll get to that in a bit. Of course, this makes Lua tear up. That's when Sir Garrett, Lua's all-time crush, appears in the temple. They seem to go way back, when Lua was just starting to learn how to use her healing abilities as a child in the temple. He'd come in with a cut on his hand and had asked her to heal it. She struggles at first, but after some encouragement from him, she finally gets it. Some time passed since then, and since then, he became the commander of the Knights. Ariane knows her friend harbors a huge crush on Garrett, and even shows herself as being supportive. However, sometime later, Garrett comes in with fatal wounds after an encounter with a demon beast. No one thinks anything can be done to help him, but even so, after he's left alone, Lua goes to heal him. She's successful, but after transferring his wounds onto her, she can't heal herself completely. She wakes up a month later with a maiden looking after her wounds. The woman treats her horribly, even telling her that she hoped she'd never wake up as everyone had thought she was slacking off on her healing duties. Hurriedly, Lua asks how Garrett is doing, to which the woman replies that he's doing great because Ariane has risked her life to save him. What the hell? Lua is even more devastated after she tells her that they are together now. That bish! Lua storms off to her bedroom, wanting to look for answers. As she's running through the temple, she hears people talking around her about her, saying that it's rumored she likes sleeping around with a lot of men, and saying that in comparison with Ariane, she's not worthy of being a saint, even saying that she doesn't even deserve to be living in the temple. She hears everyone talk wonders of Ariane, saying she does deserve to become a saint as she saved the hero of the Empire, Sir Garrett, and that it's rumored that Ariane will even take the place of the priest. Someone then says that all the rumors about Lua are true as they heard them coming from Ariane. Lua then finds Ariane with Garrett and begs her to tell her why she started all those rumors about her. Ariane plays victim with Garrett, saying she's scared and to get Lua away from her. Garrett then, enraged, shoves Lua to the ground and tells her he hates her as Ariane told him she was only using him and that she was physically abusive towards Ariane while she pretended to be her friend. Lua is crushed, sobbing on the floor, seeing at how everyone turned their backs on her. While Garrett is walking away, Ariane comes close to her, telling her she's been wanting to see her like this since forever, only pretending to be her friend. After Lua is alone on the floor, her hair starts to transform. Some guys notice her and start to pick on her, one of them even grabbing her by the hair. Enraged, she grabs his arm and makes a wound appear on him. Everyone, including herself, is surprised. She's never felt so powerful and decides she's done helping people. The temple Lua lived in was the temple of the goddess of health, Luce, who came to be a goddess as hundreds of years ago, she saved a lot of people's lives during an epidemic in the kingdom of Zed. Now, every girl who possesses healing abilities are considered to be saint candidates, and only women in nobility are born with this power. The position of saint has been vacant for over 10 years in the temple, as it said that no eligible candidate had appeared in that time. Lua's idea of becoming a saint had come from her family, who before their death had encouraged her to do so. Some bullies show up and start hassling Lua while she's having tea, calling her incompetent and mocking her new hair color. She ignores them, but annoyed, one of them questions her directly. Lua's so over all of this. She gives them a snarky reply, even telling the girl close to her that her breath smells. They've been bullying her since forever, and before, she used to think Arian was defending her, but now she realizes that she had been the one enticing them to treat her that way all along. The girl continues to harass Lua, who snaps and transfers second-degree burns to her. Everyone is astounded. Her abilities are new to them, but Lua remembers her own mother had the same power, which allowed her to transfer and store wounds she had transferred to herself from others. She takes away the burns from the girl and hurries back to her room. While heading there, she meets the second prince, Sven Jedlon, who is known for having a bad reputation. He stops her, wanting to talk to her about her powers and offering her revenge. In the royal gardens, Prince Jedlon talks about plans he has to team up with her. Apparently, there has been an increase in attacks from demonic beasts closer to the more populated lands, which is strange as they always had lived farther out on the outskirts of the empire. Sven has the theory that people high up in the church are responsible for this, purposefully leading the beast to populated towns in order to injure a lot of citizens, who would then resort to the candidates for saint for healing. This would cause people's reverence towards the church to grow more and more, eventually surpassing that of the royal family, giving the church the opportunity to take over the kingdom. Sven tells Lua he suspects the high priest, which shocks her immensely, as when all of her family had died of a sudden illness, he had been the one to look for her and take her into the church after hearing of her powers. Lua is horrified at this plan, and Sven adds that this isn't the high priest's plan alone, as he believes 3 noble families are involved as well, all led by Earl Travers, Ariane's father. Lua is dismayed at the thought that maybe Ariane might be involved as well. Sven tells her he's received information that suggests the high priest has made a deal with a tribe of another country, the Yuan people, who can control demonic beasts. He then asks for her help to gather information from the church, also suggesting that Lua's powers can be of service as well, and offering her, in return, revenge towards Arian Travers. She asks for time to think about it, as she's only learned already that her trust must be earned, and decides to look into herself before giving him any answers. While going back to her chambers, Lua crosses paths with the high priest Felix Ronhartz. Apparently, the Ronhartz family has been in charge of the church and the organization of the saint candidacy since forever. He greets Lua and tells her he's glad she's recovered from her injuries, telling her that once she's fully recovered, she should go back to work. This really annoys Lua, as she realizes that the high priest always expected her to work more than the other candidates, not giving her any days off and telling her that it was for her own good, as her powers were weaker than the others. Lua goes to the royal library to investigate the Yuan tribe. She finds a book which says that they can communicate with demonic beasts through the use of their magical language and have a tattoo resembling a scale on their necks. In the library, she is greeted once again by Sven, who is now accompanied by a man. Sven introduces him as Shiji Rubin, his most trusted aide, telling her he recruited him from the West due to his remarkable abilities. Even though Shiji is not from the Yuan tribe, he has learned a bit of their language from a passing merchant, and Sven is offering Lua to be taught by him, to which she accepts. When leaving, Sven asks himself if Lua really is his goddess. Strange. Some days later, following Sven's advice, Lua is sweeping through the church at night, wanting to find something suspicious on the high priest. She follows a figure to the Tower of Prayer, where no one is allowed entry as it's going to be demolished. There, she recognizes the priest's assistant waiting for the figure, who seems to be a member of the Yuan tribe, and opens the tower for him to meet with the high priest. Before going into the tower to spy on the high priest, Lua has to take care of his servant who's standing guard outside. She decides to use her power, but has to be smart about it as she has to make physical contact with him for it to work. She appears before him, passing off as a lost servant. He gives her direction to the quarters and she knocks him out by giving him a tremendous headache when she grabs his hand in gratitude. She then swiftly enters the tower, hiding behind some boxes, where she hears the high priest talking to the Yuan tribe member, congratulating him for having led the beasts to a nearby town. Lua is then shocked to see Ariane present as well, who is demanding the high priest to make her saintess already. He tells her to be patient as the plan had just started, telling her he'd already given her his support for her engagement to Garrett, unsettling Lua even further. Ariane then starts talking bad of Lua, telling the priest she never knew her place for having a crush on Garrett, even calling her disgusting. She then asks the high priest if they can get rid of her once she becomes saintess, and he tells her that's right, but that their plan is just starting. Right before he says his true intentions, Lua makes a noise, which is noticed by the Yuan boy. She's saved by Shijin, who appears there and releases rats, causing Ariane to freak out. They take advantage of that to leave. Outside the tower, she meets Sven and accepts his offer to team up to stop the high priest and get revenge on Ariane. Lua wakes up the next day and remembers that the night before, Sven also gave her a key to a secret greenhouse he owns in the back gardens of the royal palace. He told her no one else knows about it but him and asked her to meet him there the next day. Lua is determined to get revenge on Ariane and stop the high priest's plan, so she decides to trust Sven. Once in the greenhouse, she is greeted by Sven and Shijin. There, she has tea with Sven, while Sven is being all courteous and charming to her, telling her that now that they are accomplices, they should speak more casually with one another, and even telling her she can go to the greenhouse to read. This makes Lua blush as she realizes he'd noticed her love for books when they met in the library. Sven then gives her a portfolio about Viscount Rose Desmond, also known as the Viscount of Lust, as he's famously known to be quite the player and adulterer, even though he has a wife and a young son. Sven tells her he's one of the 3 nobles helping the high priest with his plans, using his connections to trade with the West and giving them goods in exchange for their services. Sven also thinks he's responsible for smuggling into the country sedated beasts. Lua is enraged, as she's seen firsthand what the result of the demonic beast's attacks are. Sven tells her that his plan is to gather some of the Viscount's papers to use as evidence against him and the high priest, and he asks Lua to go as his +1 to the Viscount's birthday ball. At the same time, it also seems Ariane has been invited, and she's now asking Garrett to go with her. Garrett doesn't seem too excited to go to the ball, and tells Ariane he kinda doesn't want to go. This really upsets her, and she insists, putting on some puppy eyes which wins stupid Garrett over. Right then, 2 of Garrett's men appear asking for help as one of them got badly injured while training. Garrett looks at his leg and tells him it's broken, but not to worry as Ariane is there and she can help him. He asks her for that favor, but of course, lazy-ass Ariane refuses after a long debate in her head just because she's tired. She puts on another puppy, teary-eyed show, telling Garrett she'd rather not, as she's been working really hard and using her powers a lot. As if! She's even admitted to herself that she hasn't been doing anything lately, as she used to toss it all to poor Lua. The soldiers leave to look for another healer, and after Garrett expresses concern for his soldier, Ariane responds by telling him she doesn't care for something like that, which really ticks him off. She starts talking about clothes for the ball, but Garrett's quite displeased at her, but then ends up convincing himself it's all fine because she's cute, basically. Kinda feel sorry for him, honestly. How could he be so foolish? Lua is in her room looking for what to wear to the ball, but she can't find anything befitting, as whatever she had been destroyed by bullies, and the one good ribbon she owned, she ended up giving to Ariane way back. More than giving, Ariane practically took it from her, telling her she shouldn't wear something so flashy as she could catch the bully's attention. Gosh, what a bish. Lua then thinks of buying something new, but she has no money as the high priest never approved her request to receive an allowance, even though it was common for candidates to receive one from the church. The same insolent maid who was tending for Lua when she woke up comes into her room, without knocking, and gives her a huge suitcase from Shiji. She then goes on to complain that it was heavy and questions why she has to deliver it to her, even going as far as asking her if she decided to seduce Shiji as well. Lua is fed up. She wants to use her powers on her, but contains herself, as for Sven's plans, they better be kept a secret. She then decides to confront her instead, reminding her that those comments not only insult her, but also Shijin, as he's Sven's loyal aide, the prince himself. The maid is even more insolent than ever, putting excuses for herself, but with a steely look, Lua reminds her of their social positions and warns her to be more careful. The maid finally backs down, bows, apologizes, and leaves. Good for you, girl. Now relieved, Lua opens up the box and finds a gorgeous dress, along with beautiful shoes and a necklace. There's also a letter from Sven, telling her he commissioned it from the best tailor in the capital, and even picked out the accessories himself. How cute. He even tells her he sent out an official request for her to have a long vacation, as he's realized the high priest never let her rest. My boy is a true prince indeed. Of course, our girl blushes at Sven's kindness. She notices she needs to find some earrings, and remembers she still has one left from her mother. It was a memento she had given her. When Lua was just a child, she used her healing powers for the first time outside her family on a boy. That's when she lost the other earring. She then remembers that it was not long after that she came home from playing and found her whole family dead from an illness. Kinda sus. The day of the ball comes around, and Lua is picked up by a carriage sent from Sven, guarded personally by Shijin. Sven couldn't go personally because, being a member of royalty, he has to be there earlier. Once they arrive at the venue, a dazzling dressed-up Sven welcomes Lua. She's a bit taken off guard by his majestic looks. I mean, same sis. He then compliments her, telling her she looks beautiful, and he's glad he picked the right colors to make her gorgeous white hair stand out. This knocks Lua a bit down, as she's been bullied for her white hair before, telling Sven he shouldn't overdo the flattery and that her hair is a bit strange. He gets closer to her and takes her braid in his hand, kissing it, and telling her she should be proud of it as it represents all the pain she's had to endure. OMG, marry this guy now! Lua starts to tear up, and Sven even gets her to laugh by telling her her hair matches to his and even to Shijin's, making Shijin a bit uncomfortable and causing Lua to giggle. They share a spellbinding look and then go to the party. Once inside, Sven tells Lua the Viscount is really sharp but has a weakness for beautiful women, and so they decide to wait for the right time for Lua to approach him. Sven is really slowed down by all the people wanting to speak to him, being a prince and all, and so Lua decides to take a look around herself alone, trying to see if she can gather some info. She notices a maid who seems to be unwell, or rather nervous about something. Just as she goes to approach her, she is intercepted by Arian and Garrett. Of course, Arian starts to subtly harass Lua as soon as she sees her. They haven't seen each other since she showed her true colors to her in the garden. Neither has she seen Garrett since. Lua harbors extreme resentment towards him for having tossed her to the ground, as she should. Arian mockingly asks her if she went to the ball alone, asking a quite uncomfortable Garrett if he doesn't think it's a bit sad. Lua patiently tells them she was invited, and she does have a partner, which sparks Arian's curiosity. She then notices Lua's white hair, even laughing and telling her she looks like an old woman. Lua has to restrain herself from becoming violent, but after remembering Sven's words, she calmly replies that she actually likes it better like this. Garrett grabs Arian's shoulder and tells her they should go, so she doesn't need to be kind to her bully. I mean, is he deliberately this blind? Arian complains, telling him she wants to see if Lua was lying about her partner, and then starts asking about her clothes. Just as she's trying to forcefully take Lua's earring from her, Sven appears, hugging Lua and introducing himself to Garrett and Arian. They greet him formally as second prince, and then Arian rudely asks him what a prince is doing with an orphan. Sven politely replies that they are together that night because she helped him with his charity work for orphans, and as a repayment, he invited her there that night. People around them seem pretty convinced about that story, even remembering who Lua's parents were, as her father was a baron, and sympathizing with her in her family's horrible tragedy. Seems Sven knows how to win a crowd over. Arian seems convinced enough and then takes off to go dance with Garrett. She walks away, but Sven grabs Garrett's arm and tells him he's very gullible and has awful taste in women. leaving him shocked. Well, someone had to tell him, right? Sven then takes Lua and leaves them, leaving a confused Garrett and an enraged Ariane behind. Everyone's dancing in the ballroom now, and Sven invites Lua to share a dance with him. However, Lua clams up and tells him she's not a good dancer, but after a pouty face from Sven, she agrees to dance with him if the song she's good at comes along. Honestly, I love the dynamic between these two. Seconds later, they notice the maid that seemed to be nervous before holding a knife, muttering something to herself while she heads straight towards the Viscount. With a lunatic and yet terrified Tool, she's repeating to herself that she has to kill him, even if it costs her her life. Luckily, Sven intercepts her smoothly before anyone notices anything's going on, discreetly making her give him the knife and calming her down. The three of them go outside, where Sven and Lua start questioning her. Sobbing and on her knees, she confesses that she intended to kill the Viscount as he had, well, done something unimaginable to her. I don't even want to mention it, but you guys can probably imagine what this lustful, dirty pig did to that poor girl. She tells them that she used to be a maid there, but after getting engaged to her childhood friend, she decided to quit as they were going to move to the outskirts of the capital for her husband to open up a bakery there. However, right when she gave in her notice, the Viscount called her to his chambers, where he forcefully took advantage of her. After that, she told her fiancé, who was enraged, and confronted the Viscount. That only resulted in more tragedy for the both of them, as he was now making it impossible for the man to open his new bakery. Lua is enraged, and along with Sven, promises the woman to help her get revenge on the Viscount and help them open their bakery without the Viscount's interference. Back inside the ballroom, Sven expresses his surprise towards Lua taking on the responsibility of also solving Charlotte's, the maid's, plight. She tells him she plans on carrying out their plan, but she'd also like to try solving Charlotte's issue at the same time. That's when Lua notices they are playing the song she knows how to dance, and without missing a beat, Sven takes her by the hand onto the dance floor. Everyone starts staring at them, complimenting them on their elegant dance, even comparing their dance to Ariane's and Garrett's dance, noting they like Sven and Lua's better. Of course, this infuriates Ariane, and after being asked by Garrett why she's mad, she literally straight up calls Lua and Sven pests. How effing clueless can Garrett be? She's literally the worst. While dancing, Sven notices Lua's earring, the one she had left from her mother, and it is shown he's wearing the matching pair himself. He smiles, noticing she's the girl he's been looking for since he was a child. Apparently, he used to sneak out of the royal palace undercover to walk around the capital and learn the lives of his people. But one time he got really hurt after defending a young woman that was being attacked by some men. He was hiding in an alley after that, as he couldn't go back hurt as it would raise too many questions. That's when a young Lua found him. The first person she healed outside her family had been Sven all along. She got close to him and offered to heal him, even though it hurt a bit afterwards. Unfortunately, Sven had gotten used to feeling uncared for and unloved, as he had been named the Cursed Prince after his mother almost bled to death after giving birth to him. She had been saved by the Saintess at the time, but he had grown up followed by the stigma of that event. Lua had been the first person to ever show true care to him, but before he could ask her name, she left to return to her mother. He had become completely entranced by her after that, spending the next years of his life trying to find out who she was. He feels a bit guilty for finding her so late, not having been able to help her through all of the hardships she had to endure up until now. But now, he intends to become her sword and shield. OMG, I ship them so hard, guys. After their dance, the Viscount takes an interest in Lua, calling her beautiful and as elegant as a lily, all while leering at her with crazed eyes. She figures out that the best way to get him alone, to get the documents they need, is to seduce him. And given that she no longer cares about the rumors going around about her, she goes for it. The Viscount gets a bit close to her, even grabbing her chin, but Sven quickly reacts and elegantly diffuses the situation, telling the Viscount she's his partner for the night. However, Lua swiftly goes into character and manages to seduce him, resulting in him inviting her to his chambers after the next song ends. The Viscount then leaves to socialize some more. Sven, on the other hand, is trying his hardest to keep on a cordial smile, but his expression honestly ends up being terrifying. He then asks Lua for her hand and starts wiping it vigorously, telling her he wants to clean off the touch of that filthy man. He asks her where she learned to talk like that, and she just tells him that she imitated the other women who are always around the Viscount. Also reminding Sven she needs to be able to physically touch the Viscount to use her abilities on him. Sven then tells her that's fine, but they need to get everything ready before she meets him just in case, telling her also to call for him if anything goes wrong. Lua goes to the Viscount's room, where he is already waiting for her while drinking wine. In the blink of an eye, he grabs her wrists and forces her onto the bed, pinning her down by her wrists and demanding she tells him the real reason she's there. Of course, Lua is caught off guard by this question, fearing he somehow managed to find out her plan. Outside the Viscount's mansion, Shijin is scouring the perimeters in case anything weird happens, and he has to alert Sven and Lua. While walking around, he notices Ariane meeting with a strange hooded man. He can't recognize him, but he can see he's not Garrett. They are meeting in a place that looks like a warehouse, and Shijin is horrified to suspect that maybe they have a demonic beast trapped in there. He loses sight of them, but then rushes to look for Sven and Lua and warn them about his suspicions. In the meantime, the Viscount is questioning Lua's reasons for being there. He suggests reasons like money, status, and whatnot, relieving Lua as he clearly has no clue of their plan. He squeezes her wrists harder, demanding an answer, and she decides to play the Rebel Saintess candidate card, telling him she just wants to experience a true thrill as her life as a Saintess candidate is too boring. He laughs, instantly buying that explanation. He then goes on to talk about Charlotte and how he likes when his partners resist, but would also like to try to be with someone who is there willingly. What the hell? That douchebag! I don't even want to think about how many other women he's hurt before. This also enrages Lua, who decides to show him no mercy. He releases one of her wrists and rips out part of her dress, and Lua takes advantage of that to touch him with the palm of her hand and transfers a skin disease onto him. She knows it's not fatal, and all it causes is an unbearable itch, but she bluffs, telling him she put poison in his wine and he'll die within minutes if she doesn't give him the antidote. Lua then tells him that she'll only give him the antidote if he gives her the documents containing his transactions with the West, shocking him completely. It doesn't take much time for him to give in and tell her where they are found, then demanding the antidote. However, Lua gives him a slip of paper and tells him that before she gives him the antidote, he has to sign it. The paper she handed him is a bill for a huge amount of money directed towards Charlotte. He's horrified at having to pay such high compensation to an ex-employee, but Lua is stern, telling him it not only accounts for the physical and emotional damage he's inflicted upon her, but also for the economical damage he caused by making her husband close his bakery. Charlotte also told her he's done what he did to her to countless other women, even leaving them pregnant and throwing them in the streets. She hopes to use the money to help them as well as their children. Love seeing women stand up for women. He refuses at first, but Lua tells him to choose between his wealth or his life, and of course, he ends up signing the bill. He then begs for the antidote, but Lua turns to him with an ice-cold look and tells him there's no such thing. Desperate, he yells for help, trembles, and ends up collapsing on the floor from the unbearable itchiness. Once passed out, Lua gets rid of his disease with the click of her fingers. As she leaves his bedroom, she is greeted by Sven, who looks at her worriedly and tells her he's glad she's okay. He then notices her ripped dress and becomes infuriated at the Viscount, already planning how to deal with him even though Lua just did. He gives her his coat for her to cover up, and she apologizes for being unsightly, which, obviously, makes Sven blush like a tomato, telling her that's not it, and that he'll make her understand from now on. Yeah, we're just as confused as Lua right now. That's when Shijin rushes to them. He tells them what he saw and his suspicions that there's a demonic beast in the precinct. As if on cue, they hear wails coming from the ballroom. They rush there and find a huge beast attacking the guests. Lua also notices Ariane looking at the chaos with a smile. Yes, a smile on her face! Apparently, releasing that demonic beast onto nobility had been the high priest's plan, even though they didn't even warn the Viscount about it. They knew he had a beast in his warehouse and decided to take advantage that almost all of the nobility would be present at his birthday to attack them. It seems that most of the nobility are loyal to the royal family, even fearing the church is gaining too much power. So they hope to use the beast to harm them without killing them, so that Arian would then heal them and thus gain their support towards the church. They had to be very careful on which families they target though, or they would most likely become suspicious of them. Arian asked the Yuan person to order the beast to hurt but not kill the guests, except for Lua, whom she ordered to be killed. She's a total lunatic, you guys. While Arian's looking at the rampage and smiling like a madwoman, Garrett is in the main ballroom trying to evacuate the guests. He didn't bring his sword as Arian had told him it would be tacky. Yeah, right. The main entrance is blocked by debris, so the evacuation is extra difficult. Garrett also notices he lost track of Ariane in the commotion and hopes she's safe. Yeah, you delusional twat, she's safe all right. Shijin brought Sven his sword from the carriage, so he decides to face the beast while Shijin goes to locate the Yuan person to arrest him. Lua's worried about this, but Sven proudly tells her he's stronger than she thinks, even telling her he's stronger than Garrett. Love how he can get competitive even in such a dangerous situation. He gives her the papers and tells her to evacuate, but Lua has other plans. Knowing Ariane is behind the attack, she figures she most probably has the beast targeting her, and so Lua will use that to their advantage. Sven's not convinced at first, not wanting Lua to put herself in such a dangerous situation. However, with a decided look, Lua hushes him with her finger and insists that revenge must be accomplished without sanity. Obviously, Sven is won over by this, squeezing her hand and, with love-filled eyes, telling her she's more than anything he'd imagined. Oh god, the feels. The beast is about to kill a poor old lady, who also has white hair, but Garrett puts himself between them. Luckily for both Garrett and the old woman, Lua calls for the beast's attention, noticing how Ariane made it target white hair, and lures it to an emptier part of the ballroom where Sven slashes its throat. She then approaches it and touches its chest, transferring a hangover to the beast, which immediately knocks it out. Seems she can use her powers on demonic beasts as long as she chooses the affliction correctly. With the beast now fallen, everyone cheers for Sven and Lua, congratulating him on killing the beast and Lua for her bravery acting as a decoy. Your plan kinda blew up in your face, didn't it, Ariane? Still, next to the old lady, Garrett is staring longingly at Lua, but oh boy, don't you dare come running back to her now. In any case, Ariane reappears, annoyed and frustrated of course, and goes to meet with Garrett. Luckily, Shijin also finds the Yuan right before he manages to escape, catching him in the act. A young man also appears in scene and appears to recognize Lua from way back, before she even had white hair. After the beast was handled, Sven showed all of the nobility the documentation which evidenced that the Viscount had been behind this all along. He was arrested immediately, along with the Yuan, and they were both taken in a carriage escorted by the royal guard, which was meant to reach their holding place, where they would have been questioned to expose the high priest. However, the carriage was attacked by a band of assassins before they reached their destination. The Yuan was killed on the spot, while the Viscount became so traumatized, he ended up becoming completely catatonic. Of course, Lua and Sven suspect the assassins were sent by the high priest, but given their quick response, they rather imagine they were on standby, prepared since the beginning by Ariane in case her plans went sideways. Not all was bad though, as Charlotte was able to get the compensation from the Viscount, and the Viscount's wife and son are now living comfortably in the wife's hometown, away from his abuse. Lua asks Sven what their next move is going to be, but he tells her that before they do anything, he has to go to an audience with his father, and that he summoned Lua as well. It takes her a second to realize she's about to meet the king. In the meantime, Ariane is quite bored in her bedroom, feeling frustrated for her failed plan and angry that the high priest ended up scolding her for her reckless behavior. A maid comes in and lets her know the high priest is looking for her as he means to speak to her about the upcoming annual birthday celebration, a time where saint candidates are called on. In the royal palace, Prince Sarid, Sven's older brother, is reviewing the documents from the incident at the ball when a green-haired lady named Diana and the guy that recognized Lua in the ball come into his office. She scolds him for furrowing his eyebrows, and tells him to smile more like Sven, which ticks him off. She quickly puts him in his place though, telling him not to get upset so easily and reminding him that she's his fiancée. She tells him that Lua will be coming to the palace. Louis, the guy from before, expresses to the prince that Lua is important to him. The high priest expresses his anger and frustration towards Arian's selfish and reckless behavior to a maid. The maid insists it's not such a big deal as she cleaned up after herself, and insists Arian will probably be more obedient now that the goddess's birthday celebration was approaching and that the high priest had voted for her to become one of the 2 Rose Maidens. Garrett knocks on his door and enters his office, wanting to ask the high priest about a saintess candidate. The high priest becomes quite nervous and shoos him away by telling him he's really busy, as he had all the papers of his master plan lying on his desk. Garrett leaves, hung up on Lua and her image when facing the beast, wondering if she's really as bad as Arian had pictured her to be. Gosh, he's really the dumbest man ever. Lua is already in the royal palace, heading to the audience room to meet with the king. She hears everyone chattering about her as she walks by, but now it's only good things she hears, like people congratulating her bravery and a man even suggesting that she may be chosen as the 2nd Rose Maiden, who is picked by the royal family. Luce's birthday celebration is an annual religious festival where the main focus is put on the saintess, but as they have none right now, the church and the royal family pick out 2 Rose Maidens from the candidates to play important roles in the ceremonies. Arian has been Rose Maiden for 2 years straight, and last year the royal family had picked the daughter of a noble family as the other one. Lua, on the other hand, had always been tasked with chores. Lua decides to cut through a garden to reach the audience room, but is surprised by a bucket full of water being thrown at her by an unknown woman. She is immediately found by Prince Sarid, who recognizes her, glares at her, and proceeds to demand to know why she's in the garden in such an unpresentable state. Lua ponders whether to tell him the truth or not, but she decides not to in fear of raising even more speculation. She then tells him she accidentally dropped water on herself, but obviously, this vague answer doesn't satisfy Sarid. He then tells her he'll figure out why Sven is so enamored with her before she meets the king, reaching to take her arm when he's stopped dead in his tracks by Diana. She immediately starts scolding him for questioning a soaking wet Lua instead of offering her help or a change of clothes, telling him the future king has to be considerate. This amuses Lua as she notices the intimidating Sarid from moments ago is being completely dominated by Diana. After ending him, Diana turns to Lua with a smile and introduces herself as Diana Peridot, Sarid's fiancée, and upon realizing she's talking to the future queen, Lua also bows and introduces herself. Diana grabs her and ushers her to her room to give her a change of clothes. Sarid tries to make her stop, telling her she doesn't know her, but Diana responds firmly, telling him Lua's her benefactor and not to interfere, shutting him up on the spot. Gosh, I love strong female characters like her. In Diana's room, she gives Lua a gorgeous red dress, which Lua accepts gratefully but can't help to feel guilty about ruining yet another gift from Sven. Diana notices this and tells her she and Sven really seem to get along, noting it's not common for him to care so much about one woman. She then thanks Lua for her courage at the ball, as the old woman she saved is actually Diana's grandmother. Later, Lua finally meets with the king, who firstly thanks her for assisting in stopping the beast and catching the people responsible. He then tells her he'll grant her any wish in compensation and asks her what she would want. Lua asks the king for the deed on her childhood home, the former Baron Restadt's manor. The king seems surprised, informing her it's not worth much, but she insists, telling him it's got a lot of sentimental value to her. It was actually about to be demolished, and it had been her lifelong dream to get it back. So she's now extremely grateful to the king for granting her that wish. The king then expresses his surprise at her not having asked for an approval of an engagement to Sven, leaving Lua completely astounded. If he wasn't so serious, Lua might be thinking he was joking. He then tells her that every time Sven spoke of her, he seemed more relaxed and brightened than usual. So much so that the queen took an interest. Nonetheless, Lua reminds him that due to her low status, marrying Sven is not an option, surprised to feel a slight pain in her chest while saying so. The king tells her that it's possible if she becomes a saint, but that's just a pipe dream as the position has been vacant for 10 years now. Lua leaves the audience room and is going down some stairs when the same woman from before pushes her from behind. She's saved by Sven, who demands to know how she fell and why she was not wearing his dress. She tells him of the previous incidents, leaving him quite preoccupied to the point where he tells her he'll assign Shijin to look after her. She doesn't want to inconvenience him, so she tells him it's nothing and that she's used to being harassed, utterly breaking Sven's heart. They share a heart-melting moment while Sven tells her it's okay to hurt sometimes, when they are interrupted by the guy from before who immediately recognizes Lua and rushes to embrace her strongly. Louis is extremely emotional to see Lua, hugging her tightly and thanking God for having met her again. Lua is shocked but happy, asking him to calm down a bit. Sven also appears and with a devilish aura, pulls him away from her and asks Lua who he is, even calling him apple-headed. Boy, is he jealous now. Louis, once realizing he's before Prince Sven, begs for forgiveness for his behavior. In any case, Lua asks him to stop teasing Louis and explains to Sven that he used to nanny for her and her brother when she was young. He's apparently the son of a wealthy merchant from a neighboring kingdom, but ran away from home as his father wanted to force him to take the family business. Lua's father found him and hired him for his home and was loved by all instantly. Louis then tells Lua that after her family's tragedy, his father found out where he was and forced him back home to learn the family business. However, it seems that his little sister is way better than him at handling the business, so she took over and he's been free ever since. He then went to work for the Peridot family and was appointed Diana's servant. In a more serious tone, Louis then confesses to her that he has a reason to suspect that her family's death had not been caused by an illness and that they had actually been murdered. Lua's shocked to hear this, asking him why he suspects that and who could have wanted to harm them. But before Louis can answer, some maids complain about some apples he dropped, and he hurries to pick them up, telling Lua he'll tell her everything later. Honestly, I'm shocked at how shocked Lua is. All of your family suddenly dying from an unknown illness? That's way too sus, girl. Next day, Lua finds Shijin by her door, and he tells her that he's been appointed to guard her by Prince Sven, following the incidents she's experienced at the palace. Shijin then hands her a letter from the royal palace, and she's stunned by its contents. Lua rushes to Sven's greenhouse, wanting to ask him about the contents of the letter. It seems the letter said that she's been selected to be that year's Rose Princess by the royal family, and Lua's having a really hard time believing it. She questions Sven if he had been the one to nominate her, but to her surprise, it had actually been Diana, and many had immediately backed her up. Lua's intimidated by her new responsibility, feeling it's a role that's too extravagant for her. But Sven rapidly reassures her that she's most qualified, adding that he wants to see her wearing the Rose Princess's gown. He then explains that it's beneficial to their plan, as Lua could use this as an opportunity to gain support from the people, solidifying her public position, which may be of use when they expose the High Priest. Lua agrees and accepts her position as Rose Princess, even though the other princess is Ariane. Back in Ariane's chambers, she's showing Garrett her veil for the Rose Princess gown. However, Garrett tells her he needs to go back to his duties as things get more chaotic in the streets around the time of the festival. Ariane goes all toxic on him, demanding him to make one of his men take care of it, and even asking him whether he found his duties or her more important. This really angers Garrett, and he firmly tells her it's inappropriate of her to ask him that. This doesn't last long, though, as Ariane starts tearing up and manipulating Garrett to think it's his fault and he's the bad one, making him instantly apologize. Ariane's getting bored of this, and is also frustrated to know the other Rose Princess is Lua, so she starts thinking of a plan to bring her down. In the meantime, Lua and Shijin leave Sven's greenhouse, but we see a woman with a dark aura spying on them from afar. She seems to look like the woman who harassed Lua in the royal palace, and she's talking to herself, saying that Lua's evil and she stole Sven from her, even saying she's supposed to be Sven's fiancé. She also has a pendant with a picture of Sven hanging from her neck. What the hell? Luce's birthday festival lasts 3 days in total. During the first 2, the Rose Princesses go around town handing out roses, and on the 3rd, they each play a piece on the piano in honor of Luce, who was said to love playing piano. At the end of their performance, everyone who received a rose throws it in. Lua's most worried about playing the piano, even though she'd played when younger with her mother. Since coming to the temple, she'd only been allowed to play very few times. She's now heading to the piano room in the royal palace, where the former Rose Princess is supposed to teach her about her duties and help her with the piano. Lua's heading there, escorted by Shijin, and she stops a second to tell Shijin that he doesn't have to stay so close to her all of the time, but he insists, telling her that they are direct orders from Sven. Shijin also adds that he wishes to be called more casually by Lua, who has been calling him Lord Shijin, telling her that as she's so important to his master, he respects her equally to Sven. She's a bit surprised at Shijin telling her she's important to Sven, as she's never thought of it that way, and she also marvels at his loyalty. He tells her he owes his life to Sven, and that's why he now dedicates his life to him. Apparently, he had been abandoned as a child and was living miserably on the streets of a poor town in the West. He learned to fight from merchants and passing knights, and he was once nearly killed when he was wrongfully accused of a robbery. Sven appeared suddenly and stood up for him, also offering him to work for him. Once in the piano room, Lua meets the previous Rose Princess, Nurne Sandra, daughter of Chancellor Sandra, also a Saintess candidate. Lady Sandra instantly glares at her and tells her that before they start, her security has to wait outside. Shijin leaves, but tells them he'll come in unannounced at any noise. Nurne's quite troubled by Lua's presence, and her pendant falls to the ground. Lua picks it up for her, recognizing it belongs to the woman who pushed her down the stairs. Nurne gives Lua a repertoire from which she has to pick a piano piece to play on the third night of the festival. She's quite hostile towards her, telling her she's not on the same level as her and Ariane, the previous year's Rose Princesses. But as she used to be noble, she should be able to play at least one. Lua responds firmly, telling her she knows how to play because her mother, who was famous for her talent, taught her. Nurne goes as far as insulting Lua's mother, calling her merely famous. After Lua tells her the song she wants to play, Nurne tells her it's too hard for her and suggests a children's song instead. That's Snake! She apparently begged her father to make her Rose Princess that year as well, but he explained that other people nominated Lua and she'd won. She's extremely obsessed with Sven, since they met once years ago and he politely smiled at her. She's been delusional thinking he fell in love with her and they got engaged. She deems Lua as a pest and wants to get rid of her. She leaves her to practice alone and Shijin returns. He tells her he notices how hostile Nurne is towards her and that she could be the one that tried to harm her. Lua tells him not to report it to Sven as she doesn't want to bother him, but is determined to get back at her herself. Nurne has always been interested in dark, bloody things, and that's how she became interested in Sven, as he was rumored to be the cursed prince. They only met once. That time they crossed paths and he greeted her by smiling at her. But ever since then, she's been obsessed with him, thinking he loves her as well, and he's waiting for the right time to propose. It's been 3 weeks since her meeting with Lua, and she's walking in the royal palace when she hears someone playing a piece so difficult even she can't play it. Struck by jealousy, she barges into the piano room to find Lua playing it, demanding to know how she's able to play that. Gracefully, Lua tells her it's rude to interrupt someone's playing like that, and that she learned that piece when she was 7 years old, as it was the last piece taught to her by her mother. It seems that for the past 3 weeks, Lua's been practicing intensely every day with Diana, who Shijin told her is a great piano player. She tells Diana she wants to get back in shape to play the piano perfectly for the Rose Princess's performance. And Diana, of course, notices Lua has someone she wants to beat, grabbing both her hands and telling her she'll help her make it perfect. Honestly, she's the auntie we all wish we had. Now, Lua is standing her ground before Nurne, telling her she won't back down from her position as the Rose Princess. She even adds that someone like her, who knows only to inflict pain, is not worthy of being Rose Princess, let alone Saintess. Nurne rushes out, annoyed and frustrated at having lost. She runs to the rose garden, where she kneels on the ground, sobbing. Ariane appears behind her, telling her she saw everything and that it's not her fault, that it's all Lua's fault. She then gives her the idea to get rid of Lua for once and for all, as she doesn't seem to be backing down from the Rose Princess position. The first day of the festival has finally arrived, and there's a huge cart of white roses ready for Lua to give out around town. She only crossed paths with Ariane once at the beginning of the festival, before they each went their separate ways as the two Rose Princesses have different paths each day. They will meet again in the piano recital. Lua is called by Shijin, who tells her they should get going into town already. Sven also appears, surprising Lua as she thought he had to deal with guests from another kingdom during the festival. He tells her that's true, but as they were annoying, he forced them onto his brother, telling her with literal bunny eyes that he was sad that he hadn't seen her in so long, teasing that he was becoming jealous of Shijin for spending so much time with her. Lua laughs as Shijin becomes uncomfortable at Sven's teasing. Sven also tells her he wanted to see her in the Rose Maiden gown, telling her she's the most beautiful Rose Maiden of all and kissing her hand. Of course, making her blush. Lua goes into the town to give out the roses and is advised by Shijin to stay alert as there have been a lot of reports of criminal activity in the town due to the festival. As if on cue, Lua notices a man pickpocketing and decides to take care of it herself. She approaches him and with the excuse of giving him a white rose, touches him and uses her powers on him, making him fall from dizziness. His bag spills out and everyone notices he's been stealing from them, so they avalanche on him to get their stuff back. Nice one, Lua. Lua stumbles upon Charlotte, the maid they helped at the Viscount's ball, and her partner, Alan, the baker. She greets them enthusiastically, glad to see them together and happy. Charlotte tells her that they were able to get married after all, and she could share the money Lua got from the Viscount with his other victims, adding that there have also been less demon attacks since then. She thanks Lua, telling her it's all thanks to her and calling her a true saintess, healer of not only physical, but also emotional wounds. They tell her they'll support her at the recital by throwing in her white rose, as they explain to her that every year it's a common practice amongst commoners to throw in the rose of the princess you like and support more. Ariane's giving out yellow roses to people in town, and Garrett watches her fondly, glad she looks happy and is treating elders and kids well, thinking she's a good girl after all. If you might think that she wouldn't treat kids or elders right, maybe something's trying to tell you she ain't a good girl or anything close, but oh well, clueless Garrett at his finest. He hears a kid crying and approaches him. His mother tells him he cut himself with a thorn from one of the roses, and Garrett kindly tells him the Rose Princess can heal him. But the boy tells him he doesn't want to, as she's scary. Garrett is shocked, and the boy's mother explains to him that the year before, the boy had been badly injured by a demonic beast. But when they went asking for help in the temple, Ariane had refused to heal him, saying that he was too badly injured for her to help him, even yelling at him for touching her veil. Garrett can't believe his ears, as he still thinks it had been Ariane the one to save him. The boy and mother leave, leaving Garrett behind, finally wondering if Ariane had been the one to save him after all. Lua's taking a break from handing out flowers. She has been given some money in compensation for taking the role of the Rose Princess, so she wanted to look around in the market of the capital. She stumbles upon a little stand where she finds a beautiful small vial of red perfume. The shop owner tells her it's quite popular amongst men in the southern islands. She smells it, and both the red color and the sweet and refreshing fragrance reminds her of Sven. She thinks of getting it for him as a thanks for all he's done for her. Shijin suddenly pops in and asks her directly if she's thinking of getting it for Sven. She gets really embarrassed all of a sudden and denies so, telling him that it would mean nothing for a prince. But Shijin contradicts her, telling her it would mean everything for Sven coming from her. Shijin gets it. She decides to get it after all. They hear some commotion close by and go to inspect what's going on. They discover a drinking contest happening in a bar close by, and it seems a hooded green-haired woman is taking the lead. Clearly, that woman is Diana, so surprised to see her there, Lua locates Louis behind her and goes to ask him what's going on. Seems that Diana was supposed to look around the town during the festival with Sarid, but he became really busy with the guests Sven pushed onto him, so he told Diana to go look around by herself. This, of course, upset Diana, and now she's acting out. Louis also tells Lua that after the festival ends, he intends to tell her what he knows about her family's death. Finally, it's the last day of the festival and the piano recital is about to commence. The high priest goes on stage to say a few words about the festival, taking advantage of the situation to remind everyone how the church helped them during the beast attacks, and elevating the church's popularity amongst the people. Lua goes backstage to get ready for her performance when she sees Ariane. Arian starts teasing her, thinking Lua's worried about playing after her, reminding her she's an orphan and calling her uneducated. She then tells her not to worry, that if she's able to finish her performance, someone will throw a rose at her. This really unsettles Lua. What does she mean by if she's able to finish? In any case, before Arian leaves for the stage, Lua asks her if she's been using her since the moment they met, and Arian tells her that's right. She had even told her she was perfect way back then, but now Arian's telling her she meant she was perfect for her to use. Gosh, she's the worst. Lua is furious, telling her she'll pay for what she did, and she'll be the one making her pay. Arian just laughs at her. We then see Nurnay holding a rope backstage, laughing maniacally with crazed eyes. Nurnay tampered with the stage the day before the recital, and pulling that rope should cause the stage's roof to collapse, crushing anyone who's on stage. She plans to pull the rope during Lua's performance, to kill her and make it look like an accident. Now it's Arian's turn playing the piano, and she finishes her piece confidently, gaining a huge applause from the crowd. She exits the stage, and Lua takes her place on the piano. With a lunatic expression on her face, Nurnay yells for Lua to die and tries to pull on the rope, but is cut short by Shijin. Sven also appears, telling her not to make such loud noises during a performance. Of course, Nurnay is dismayed to see them there, catching her red-handed, and Sven tells her Shiji has already told him she's the one who's been trying to harm Lua. He adds that Shiji has already cut the rope from the stage ceiling, so even if she had pulled at it, it wouldn't have done anything. She tries to deny everything, saying she did nothing to the stage and begging Sven to believe her, calling him her fiancé. This gains her a glare from Sven, who, along with Shijin, tell her it's all in her imagination and that they are not engaged at all. Sven then talks about her father, the Chancellor, and says it must be hard on him to have such a difficult daughter as well as having problems at work. This shocks Nurnay, and Sven tells her that they've been thinking of firing him for some time now as he's been putting his own wealth before the kingdom's. And they even found replacements for him. The problem is that he's not backing down easily, but now after his daughter's crimes are exposed, he should back down immediately. She begs mercy, showing him her pendant and telling him she did it all for him, gaining yet another icy cold glare from Sven. Sven is harsh on her, telling her she has no value to him other than being the daughter of a chancellor, reminding her she's even about to lose that position too. Nurnay becomes frightened of him at seeing him so furious. She falls under her knees and begs for his forgiveness, telling him she'll even apologize to Lua. He's cold still, telling her she'll pay for attempting to punish the Rose Princess, and that they'll never meet again. Two guards swiftly pick her up and take her away, while she screams after him. Noticing he's unmoved by her yelling, something clicks inside her, finally realizing he's far colder than she'd imagined and that she'd been mistaken all along. Took you long enough, dear. Nurnay is taken away, and Sven thanks Shijin for his services. Shijin asks him then what charges Lady Nurnay will face, and Sven tells him she'll be sent far away to live secluded in a temple meant for imperfect saintess candidates. This will also affect her father, as they'll finally be able to fire him, and both of them will end up banished without money nor power. Lua's performance ends, and Sven regrets not being able to hear it. However, he gets excited by the idea of doing a duet with her in the future. The end of the festival arrives, and both Rose Princesses, as well as the High Priest, get on stage. Arian is annoyed at hearing how much everyone is cheering for Lua, cursing at Nurnay for having failed to get rid of her. The High Priest then tells everyone to throw their rose in. Well, you guys, that's it for Vengeance from a Saint Full of Wounds. Hope you enjoyed it. Honestly, it's become one of my favorites. I love the intricate plot and also love to see our gorgeous Lua grow stronger and fiercer every chapter. Gotta love strong female leads. Gosh, even so, Garrett is so annoying. How can he be so damn clueless? Garrett's finally starting to become suspicious of Arian's declaration, wondering how someone as loved as Lua could have bullied Ariane as she told him. Even more so, he's also wondering if in fact it had been Ariane the one to save him when he went unconscious. Thus, he decides to go confront her about it to know the actual truth. As he approaches her dressing room, he's shocked to see her mistreating the staff, throwing things and yelling at them. Ariane's fuming about how things went down in the piano concert, not only because of her failed plans to have Lua killed, but even more so because she noticed more white roses in favor of Lua than yellow roses. That's when Garrett interrupts her inner tantrum, and she throws herself at him, sobbing at him and demanding him to console her. She insists that Lua must have done something dirty to win, and he can't even get a word in as she asks him if he preferred her performance better. He's still in shock at her behavior, unable to answer, so she immediately starts guilt-tripping him by crying while saying he's not taking her side. He obviously can't talk to her like this, so he budges in to get her to calm down, apologizing to her. In the meantime, Lua's sitting on a bench while waiting for a carriage to take her back to the temple. She's thinking about how furious Ariane looked when she realized there were more white roses than yellow ones, smiling while thinking she deserves it. That's when Sven appears and sits beside her, congratulating her on how she did while being the Rose Princess, even calling her a goddess. Lua laughs, but she admits to herself it feels nice to be appreciated like that. She then takes out the perfume she got for him in the market earlier that day and shyly gives it to him, telling him she wants to thank him for everything. Sven is amazed at the gift and has gone speechless while Lua blabbers on about it. Without saying a word, he throws his arms around her and hugs her tightly. Lua's whole face is bright red while she asks Sven why he's suddenly hugging her like that. He continues hugging her, telling her he never thought she'd gift him something and it made him really happy. Lua tries brushing it off as being nothing of importance, telling him it's nothing really fancy, but he insists that what matters the most to him is that she took the time to pick it for him, so he'll cherish the gift. Still hugging her, he tells her there's something important he wants to talk to her about after they complete her plan for vengeance. He grabs her shoulders gently while telling her he won't say it before they conclude their plans because he doesn't want to get in her way. But Lua pulls on his sleeve, telling him he never got in her way, expressing how thankful she is to him for always saving her. He softly touches her cheek and tells her he still won't tell her before they carry out their plans. That's when the carriage driver finally arrives to pick Lua up. He's shocked to see the prince, Sven, there with her, but he remains quiet. Sven then leaves, thanking her once again for the perfume and wishing her a good night. For the days following the festival, everything seemed to quiet down for them. The father and Ariane didn't make any new moves, and Chancellor Sandra finally begged to retire, suddenly leaving the capital to go live in the outskirts of the empire with Nerne. Lua's getting ready to go visit the Peridot mansion, as she's finally meeting Louis to talk about her parents' death. She finally arrives and is joyfully greeted by Diana, who warmly welcomes her there and invites her to have tea with her the next time she comes. As she leads Lua to the room where Louis is preparing tea for the both of them, Diana tells her that her grandmother, the lady Lua saved during the attack at the Viscount's ball, also wanted to meet her later, as right now she's occupied with other visitors. That's when they come across a man coming out of a room, and Lua seems to recognize him. Diana stops the man before he leaves and starts chatting with him, calling him Marquess Santalua, and Lua remembers his name as being one of the 3 families that are working together with the head priest. Meanwhile, in the royal palace, Prince Sarid aggressively barges into Sven's office while yelling at him. Sven is calm, telling him he shouldn't get angry so frequently because if not, his fiancée will get tired of him, making him grow silent and calm down. He slams a paper on Sven's desk, demanding to know why Lua is visiting the Peridot mansion, thinking Sven's plotting something which involves getting in Diana's favor. Sven tries defusing him, informing him there's no scheme behind the visit, and it's only that Diana and Lua really get along. However, Sven knows that the actual reason Lua's going is to talk to Louis about the death of her parents, which makes him grow jealous a bit as he can't go with her, while remembering how strongly Louis had hugged her when they first met. Sarid is not satisfied though, telling Sven he knows he's been planning something behind his back. Well, the truth is, Sven hasn't really told Sarid about the darkness within the church, but he did tell the Emperor, who left this matter in his hands. The royal family can't do much until Sven has a lot of evidence against the church, so for now, they are keeping quiet until they can strike. Nonetheless, Sven still doesn't tell Sarid, who simply sighs and calms down. He then asks Sven if he's wearing a cologne, as he smells something different coming from him. Excitedly, Sven shows his brother the perfume Lua gave him while rambling about it. But Sarid's really not interested in any of this, so he immediately leaves Sven's office. Back in Peridot's mansion, Lua's starting to question if the Peridot family may have some involvement with the father's schemes. However, Diana then introduces him to Lua, telling her how every year the heads of the noble families come to visit their mansion around the time of the holy festival. This brings down Lua's suspicions, remembering how her father also used to come to the Peridot mansion once a year. The Marquess then introduces himself and asks Lua her name, but his face turns into a scowl when Lua tells him her last name. Lua asks the Marquess if there's something wrong with her name, but he tries dissimulating it as though he's just surprised to see a non-royal being a saint as candidate. Diana explains to him that Lua's the one who saved her grandmother during the attack at the Viscount's mansion, which only makes his complexion turn even more queasy. He tries excusing his behavior by saying his brother is in charge of public affairs, so he's not well informed on the matter. But he looks so sick, Diana offers Lua up to help him get better. The Marquess hastily declines the offer and leaves, telling them he's late for something. Weird. Lua asks Diana if there's something going on with him to make him look so pale, and Diana informs her that his son and heir has fallen ill with a severe unknown disease and has been left bedridden. This really raises Lua's suspicions as she remembers the mysterious death her family fell into and wonder whether the Marquess's son's illness is somehow related to all of this. Lua spent some time talking to Diana's grandma, so in the end she arrived a little bit late to her meeting with Louis. She knocks on the door and Louis greets her warmly, inviting her in while showing her an apple pie he made for them to enjoy, which makes Lua remember her little brother as he also loved Louis's apple pies. Remembering Louis is determined to tell Lua everything he knows on her family's death. 10 years ago in the Lestat mansion, we see a young Lua playing with her little brother while being watched by her loving parents. Lua's mother tells her they got the music box they're playing with for her, as the song is one that Lua's really fond of. Lua agrees, and her parents encourage her to practice more piano until she can play that song herself. Louis comes in, bringing his famous apple pie, and Lua's mom stands up to go fetch tea for all of them. As she leaves the living room, she's stopped by a maid who gives her a letter in a gloomy tone. Lua's mom is not happy to have received that letter, which seems to have been coming repeatedly. Lady Lestat is saying goodbye to Lua and Louis, who's in charge of taking care of her while she goes away to one of Lady Lestat's friends' home for a night. Lua's not happy about this, not understanding why she has to be the only one to go while they stay home. But her mom tries convincing her that it's only her outing this time and that they'll all go together some other day. Her dad then appears to say goodbye to her while carrying a feverish Louis in his arms. Louis wakes up then and insists on going as well, but his father tells him that he can't go due to his fever. Lua then insists she can cure him, but her mom gets angry at that, reminding her that her powers come at a high cost for her own health, so she should only use them sparingly. Lua insists, telling her she even helped a boy in town the other day, but her mother insists. Lua also tries convincing their parents to let him go as he's already taking his medicine, but it's no use. Thus, Lua leaves with Louis, telling them she'll see them soon. Poor girl. I can already imagine what's coming next. Right when Lua and Louis arrive at her mother's friend's home, Louis realizes he's not carrying one of Lua's bags with him. Desperate, he remembers that he may have forgotten it on the side of the road when they had come down from the carriage due to some trouble it had right after they left the house. The lady tries offering a carriage for Louis for him to go fetch the luggage, but he only asks for a horse as it'll be faster for him to get there. So Louis hops on a horse and hurries to the spot their carriage had stopped, where he immediately found the missing luggage. It's then he hears some rustling near him, and he sees two cloaked men speaking of a trap. One of the men says that the trap will spread throughout the body in just one night, and the men then leave, saying they'll go get data for the real plan. Louis feels as though he's heard one of the men's voices before, but he desists and rushes back to Lua with her luggage. Louis and Lua are already in the carriage returning to Lua's home, when she tells Louis she had fun playing there, but she still doesn't understand why she was the only one to have to go there. Louis tells her he doesn't know anything about it, even telling her that not even the madam who took her in knows, but he wonders if it has anything to do with the letter that arrived for Lady Lestat a few days prior. Once they arrive, Lua jumps out of the carriage and runs into the mansion, extremely excited to finally get to see her family again. However, both her and Louis find it strange that the mansion is extremely silent, and there's no one there to greet them. Lua runs off into the house, waiting to find her family, and Louis runs after her. It's then that he finds the head maid collapsed in a room, so he runs inside to see her. He notices there's a faint smell of roses and tries to wake the head maid up, but she won't react. That's when he hears a shrilling scream coming from the other room. He runs towards it, wanting to go check on Lua, and to his horror, he finds all of Lua's family members dead on the floor. Lua's desperately trying to wake her little brother up, tears streaming down her face, when Louis notices they all have a bruise in the shape of a rose near their necks. He has to stop Lua from trying to heal her brother, as it's too late for him now and Lua could get fatally injured. They then realize Lady Lestat's still alive, but very weak. Louis approaches her, trying to get her to wake up, but in her dying breath, she tells him the name of the song Lou is learning on the piano, The Applause of Light of Day, and that she loves them right before passing away. In the present, Louis tells Lua that's all he remembers of that day. Lua remembers what they told her about her family's cause of death, that it was an unknown disease her father probably caught during his charity work, and that she hadn't caught it due to her healing powers, while everyone else in the house did. She was soon taken in by the head priest and then started working in the temple. Louis adds that he investigated what had happened for many years, and he met a witness that said he saw some men who looked like the ones Louis heard in the woods, exiting the Lestat home the night of the incident. Moreover, Louis admits that the voice he recognized in the woods undoubtedly belonged to the head priest, Father Flix. Lua's jarred at this new information, wondering if he killed her family so that he could easily control her in the temple by making her an orphan, or if there's another reason. Remembering how Louis had heard him talk about a real plan, which he also talked about when Lua was eavesdropping on him way back before she allied with Sven. Lua's determined to find out what her mother had meant when telling Louis the name of the piano piece Lua had been playing, when they are suddenly interrupted by a knock on the door. It's Diana, who's bringing a photo to her, Sarid and Sven together when they were little, to give to Lua. She notices Lua's angry expression, but Lua quickly changes it and gently accepts the picture Diana's giving her, noticing how similar young Sven looked to the boy she healed when she was little. Before leaving, Diana also jokingly taunts Louis by telling him not to keep Lua too long as he may irritate Sven, terrifying Louis by just the mention of him. Once Diana's gone, Lua shows Louis she's got the property records of her former home, the Lestat mansion, telling him that she can finally return to the mansion and investigate further. She is sure that the answer to her mother's dying words lie in her own home. She also wants to go immediately. Louis is hesitant on letting her go alone, unguarded, but Lua doesn't want to involve anyone else in this. Louis suggests they get the knights to go with her by asking Diana, but Lua rejects the idea, thinking how Ariana might learn of her movements through Garrett. She thinks of asking Shijin, but unfortunately, Sven has sent him on a mission, so he won't be returning shortly. So Lua decides it's best if she went alone. Unsatisfied with this, Louis insists he goes with her to the mansion, rushing out of the room to get Diana's permission to get out before Lua can even protest. Lua's wearing a cute horseback riding outfit Lady Diana lent her, and Louis is preparing the Peridot family horse for them. Lua feels bad for asking so much from Lady Diana, but Louis explains Diana and her grandmother are more than happy to help her as much as they can, as they are forever grateful to her for having saved her during the Viscount's ball. Lua hops on the horse, and both of them start riding towards the former Lestat mansion. As they're hedging there, Louis asks Lua about the nature of her relationship with Prince Sven. She's taken aback by this, and she tries to come up with a proper answer as Louis tells her the last time they met, he felt that there was a stronger bond between the two of them. Seeing as how Lua's fallen silent, Louis clarifies that he won't pry, and he's only asking because he feels as though it's his obligation to meet her future husband as a representative of the Lestat family. This makes Lua even more uncomfortable, as she tries telling him that it's impossible for Sven to become her husband as he's a royal. But Louis is not listening to her at all, asking her desperately to not tell Sven that they're horseback riding together as he's too afraid of him. Lua laughs, and they are close to the place where Louis had heard Father Flix and the other man that fateful night, when they are shocked by the sudden rustling of some nearby bushes. Meanwhile, the deputy chief comes into Garrett's office to report that there's still an area with surviving beasts, so they should take care of that immediately. Garrett orders the chief to get some men ready to be sent to that area, who smiles after seeing Garrett's concentrated face, telling him he resembles his father a lot when he's like that. The officer tells him everyone knows he's been working hard to fill in his father's footsteps, but he also informs him that they are a bit concerned he has been spending too much time worrying about Ariane. Garrett's upset by this, as he feels as though he's not good enough to have taken his father's position. He gets over it quickly and is determined to get to the bottom of his suspicions about Ariane, so he heads over to the temple to inquire about the day he was saved. He comes across an attendant and stops her, bluntly asking her if she has any information on how Ariane had saved him. She's trembling with fear at his question. As it turns out, she's the only person who actually knows it was Lua who'd really saved him. We see how Garrett grew up under the constant pressure of his father to turn into a great commander just as he was, enduring hard training since he was just a small child, just to make him proud. However, he distinctly remembers his mother and how she always looked saddened when he went off to train. Once, she grabbed his small hands and told him that if he's too stubborn, he'll lose sight of what's important. He didn't understand her and told her he had to go train with his father then, but she grabbed his hands more tightly and asked him if he could skip training and play with her instead. Nonetheless, his father appeared behind him, ordering him to go train at once, so he let go of her hands and followed him. Some years later, his father got injured protecting his men, and the damage couldn't be healed at the temple, so he had to retire, and Garrett was the one to succeed him as commander. Garrett was fatally injured himself and brought to the temple, and he has a vague recollection of waking up and seeing someone with blonde hair healing him. However, he had passed out again, and once he finally woke up for good, he was greeted by Ariane and Father Flix, who told him Ariane had been the one to save him. Immediately after that, he went to see his father to announce his engagement to her, informing him she was the one who saved his life. Back in the present, though, the attendant's having a hard time telling him the truth on who saved him, and just when she's about to tell him, the deputy chief appears, telling Garrett one of the beasts has been reported to have injured someone near the old Lestat mansion. At the mention of Lua's surname, Garrett hastily prepares to go help. It seems the rustling sound Lua and Louis heard is a beast, and the horse gets so frightened by it that it throws Lua and Louis to the ground. Lua's worried about Louis as she accidentally falls on top of him, and as she's trying to help him, Louis jumps in front of her to shield her from a purple substance the beast is throwing at them. The poison is spreading rapidly in Louis, and Lua uses her threatening power on the beast and gives it paralysis so that it stops attacking them. Now, she focuses on trying to save Louis from the beast's poison, deciding to use her healing powers on him even though she'd promised herself never to use them again. However, Louis stops her before she can help him, as he doesn't want her to hurt herself while using her healing powers on him. Lua insists, telling him she doesn't want him to die, but he tells her he promised himself he'd never let her heal him, hurting herself in the process. He tells her not to worry, as he knows about poisonous beasts from his merchant father, and their poison can be counteracted by ingesting poisonous sabara berries, as the two poisons cancel each other out. Nonetheless, as he inspects his medicine bag, he notices he forgot to pack the sabara powder, and right then, he starts feeling dizzy and faints. Lua remembers she healed a man who accidentally ingested sabara berries once, so she decides to use her threatening power on him and pass on the symptoms of the sabara poison as a last resort to save him. Luckily, this seems to do the trick, and Louis is healed from the beast's poison. Lua then confesses her threatening power to Louis and asks him to keep it a secret, which he immediately pledges to do. They finally arrive at her old home, and Lua is moved to see the place she grew up in with her family for the first time in so many years. They enter the mansion, and everything seems to be much tidier than what they expected it to be. Lua then notices some fresh footprints on the floor, as if someone had recently stepped on the dusty floor. It's then that they hear a loud thud coming from somewhere inside the mansion, and Lua hushes Louis down as there appear to be someone inside the mansion with them. Garrett and the deputy chief are rushing on their horses to the area of the reported beast attack. The deputy chief informs Garrett the person who was attacked by the beast is reported to be a robber, and it was seen he was working with another man who's not with him now. So they believe he's either carrying out the robbery or he also got attacked by the beast in a different area. As the only thing near the area of the attack is the old Lestat mansion, they suspect that's what they were trying to rob. After hearing this, Garrett is even more determined to get out there quickly as possible, wondering how Lua would feel if she were to find out her former home being robbed. Meanwhile, Lua and Louis are frozen on their spots after realizing they're not alone in the mansion. They notice the noise coming from behind a door right in front of them, so Lua marches into the room to find the intruder, and as soon as they come into the room, a man steps behind Lua and holds a knife to her neck. The thief threatens her and tells her he's gonna take all the valuables, but Lua is not intimidated by him at all. Instead, she tells him he's underestimating her and proceeds to touch him and transfer hallucinations from the venom of a poisonous herb to him. His hallucinations cause him to run away from the Lestat mansion, finally leaving Louis and Lua alone. Thus, they begin searching around for clues pertaining to Lua's mother's last words. Lua is surprised by Louis, who jolted in joy after finding something nostalgic in the thief's bag, and after fumbling some more, he brings out something that may help them understand Lady Lestat's message. Meanwhile, in the royal palace, Sven is taking a stroll while he takes a small break from his public duties, which seem to be taking him longer than he expected. He misses Lua deeply and had hoped to be able to see her that day, but given that he's still really busy with work, he didn't think he'll be able to, and additionally, Shijin still hasn't returned from his mission. While walking around the palace, Sven hears someone playing the same piece Lua played during the Rose Festival, and he remembers his mother called a gifted pianist to play for them that day. He then remembers the story behind that piano piece, and he thinks it perfectly suits Lua. In the Lestat mansion, Lua sees Louis has found the music box she and her brother used to play with, and its song is none other than the piano piece her mother named in her dying breath. She remembers her mother showing her the music box had a secret compartment in which she could put something valuable to her, even telling her no one else other than the two of them know about this. Lua never figured out what to put in the secret compartment, but she remembers how to get it opened, and there she finds a small golden key. At first, Louis and Lua can't figure out what the key opens, but then Lua remembers Diana talking about her diary, and she gets an epiphany, thinking maybe that's the key to her mom's diary. Both of them rush upstairs to her bedroom, where they soon find her diary, and indeed, the key in the music box is able to open it. Lua gets a bit emotional while reading everything her mother wrote about her family, filled with love, and as she keeps turning its pages, she finds a letter that her mother kept inside her diary. Louis recognizes the letter as being the one her mother kept getting right before a disaster struck, and to their disgust, it's from Father Flix. It seems that the temple has been trying to recruit Lua as a Saintess candidate, but her mother, knowing the consequences Lua's healing abilities had on her health, kept refusing them. However, the temple still asked to meet with her mother and talk about Lua's ability. It's pretty common for the temple to request a child who bears healing powers to be given to them, and it's the child's duty to oblige. Nonetheless, on some special occasions, the child could refuse if they had valid reasons to. Louis notices that the day that the men from the temple and Lady Lestat were supposed to meet and talk was the same day Lua was sent out to go to Lady Lestat's friend's house, and the same night all of Lua's family died. Lua starts reading her mother's entry for the day she left with Louis to the other mansion, and it seems her parents had in fact sent her away because they didn't want Father Flix talking to her during his visit. Lady Lestat knows Lua looks up to the Saintess a lot, but she can't allow her to go to the temple, not only because of how she hurts herself while using her healing abilities, but more so because she doesn't trust Father Flix at all. She reminds her husband about the suspicious meeting Father Flix had with an infamous man, which had been witnessed by Lua's father himself during a charity trip, even though he wasn't able to hear anything. It seems the man Father Flix was seen talking to was a former researcher of the kingdom, who was researching the Saintess's healing abilities and some other medical fields. But he was banished after carrying out an atrocious experiment. So Lua's mom is really suspicious of Father Flix after knowing he met with that man. Father Flix arrives to meet with Lua's parents, and to their surprise, he isn't insistent on taking Lua after they explain her situation to him. He simply stands up and leaves them, sending his regards to Lua. It's right after he leaves that Louis runs into the room his parents are in while excitedly showing them a black rose he got from a flower merchant at their door. It appears the flower merchant hadn't been the old lady that usually comes to their home, but rather a younger man the maid's never seen before. The man told Louis he was covering for the old lady and gave him that black rose, so now Louis is really excited to keep it and give it to Lua when she returns. Lady Lestat smiles and tells Louis to go put the rose in water and go to bed while she writes that day's diary entry. However, she finds it odd that Louis and her husband are taking so much time to return after simply going to fetch some water, so she goes to check on them. Unfortunately, as soon as she opens the door of the room they're in, she's hit by a pungent scent, and the air appears to be clouded with a black dust, behind which she's able to see her husband and child collapsed on the floor. The poison in the air starts affecting her, and she figures it must be coming from the flower and suspects the merchant is involved in some way to Father Flix. Thus, with her last efforts, she returns to her room to write this down in her diary in hopes Lua will be able to read it someday. After she's done, she returns to the room where her family has perished to spend her last moments with them. Lua's silent after she finishes reading that day's diary entry, and Louis worries about her, thinking it must be really hard for her to finally have it confirmed that her family's death had not been an accident at all. She's turned away from him, and Louis asks her if she's all right after reading all that. So Lua simply turns to face him, not a tear falling from her eyes, and tells him that even if it's hard, she has to accept it so she can move on and achieve her goal. This mesmerizes Louis, seeing as how she's not shedding a single tear, and he thinks back on all the times he saw her cry when she was a young girl, thinking maybe she's not crying anymore as she's got no more tears left. Thus, they leave the mansion, taking the diary and the music box with them. In the meantime, Garrett and the chief deputy have already arrived at the site where Lua left the beast collapsed on the floor after paralyzing it. Right next to it is the thief Lua gave hallucinations to, who's in a state of shock and confusion while kneeling on the ground. Garrett and the deputy chief wonder why the beast is already on the ground, and they suspect the thief is probably still shocked from having faced the beast. They decide to tie him up and take him into custody for questioning once he's more stable. And Garrett decides he should probably put his suspicions of Ariane on hold for now while the issues of the loose beast is solved. Lua and Sven finally meet again after so long, and Sven apologizes to her for not being with her while she found out her family was killed by Father Flix. Lua dismisses him though, telling him it's no problem as he was busy with his public duties. Sven then tells her he's amazed by how much valuable information there is on her mother's diary, and looks at Lua with saddened eyes as she remembers her impressive mother. Sven then tells her that he finds most intriguing the part in which the banished researcher is mentioned, informing her that there might be a connection to the person he sent Shijin to investigate, but he'll tell her more about it once Shijin returns. Finally, Sven tells her he'll investigate this researcher on his own as well, and thanks her for bringing so much valuable information. As he notices she's lost in her own thoughts and with a worried look in her eyes, Sven calls her name to gain her attention. She thinks he wants to inform her on their next move, but instead, Sven asks her with gleaming eyes to go on a date with him the next day. Lua's taken aback by Sven's offer, blushing really hard while telling him it's not that she doesn't want to go out with him, but rather she finds it odd that they're going out while their plan is not finished yet. However, Sven insists, telling her they should both take a break and rest at least once so they can continue with their plan with their full strength. So he confesses he'd like to go on a date with her for his day of rest. Thus, Lua accepts with pleasure while bearing a smile that spreads ear to ear as Sven tells her he'll take care of everything for their date. Lua's in her room now trying to decide what to wear for her date with Sven. She thinks back on how she used to consult Ariane in situations like this, and she thinks she might be able to as Louis or Diana, but unfortunately, they're too far away for her to meet them. Thankfully, Mary the maid who witnessed her healing Garrett enters her room. She thought it was empty, but just as she hastily turned to leave, Lua stops her, asking her advice on what to wear for her date. Lua remembers how nicely Mary treated her even though the other maids looked down on her. She's the only one who puts care into cleaning her room, and the few times Lua's been able to speak with her, she's always felt great comfort. Lua tells her she's been worried for her as she hasn't seen her for a while, but Mary simply states that she took a short time off as she hadn't been feeling all too well. Mary thinks on how kind Lua is, and is ashamed of herself thinking of how she betrayed her that night she saved Commander Garrett. That night, Mary accidentally stumbled upon Garrett's room as she got lost while walking around the temple. As she saw Garrett lying unconscious on the bed, she heard Lua coming into his room to heal him. She doesn't stay any longer though, as she's afraid to get caught there by Father Flix and not being present while the head maid does the roll call. Next morning, however, she went to Lua's room to clean it up, and to her horror, she saw blood spilling out from under her door. She immediately flung the door open to find Lua unconscious on her bed while laying on a pool of her own blood. She rushed to her, realizing she took in all of Garrett's wounds in order to heal him, but her self-healing power is not working properly. It's then that Ariane walks in, implying Lua sneaked out to party all night. Mary is really confused at what Ariane's saying, but Ariane goes further, saying that Lua's been sneaking out to party with men every night, so she figures she must have been attacked by a beast as she came back, also saying that last night she herself was busy healing Commander Garrett. This really disconcerts Mary, as she knows it really was Lua who saved Garrett, but Ariane continues with her lie, asking Mary if she agrees with her assumptions. Mary's really distraught on what to do, as she remembers the head maid advising her not to get on Nurne's nor Ariane's bad side as they come from powerful families. She also advised her to be even more careful around Ariane, as they all know she was favored by Father Flix and was the most likely one to become Saintess. Thus, Mary finally decides to go along with Ariane and agrees with her. Therefore, Ariane blissfully goes out of Lua's room saying she'll go see Garrett now and ordering Mary to clean the blood in the corridor. Lua's alive but unconscious as her body slowly tries healing itself, and so Mary makes haste to bring bandages to Lua to help her as much as possible, even though she knows that once her wounds heal, there won't be any evidence against the false rumors Ariane will spread about her. During the month Lua was bedridden, Mary saw how Ariane's rumors spread like bushfire. And even though they all had their suspicions regarding Ariane's story, everyone decided to play fools and go along with it, fearing Ariane's power. So now, noticing how distraught Mary looks, Lua apologizes for asking her to help pick an outfit and tells her to go rest while she cleans her bedroom herself. Lua's kindness makes Mary break down in tears, feeling guilty for not stepping up for her and not having told Garrett the truth when she had the chance. It's already the next day, and Lua is heading to the place Sven told her to meet him at, which is none other than the bench they hugged on the night of the Rose Festival. Lua's still a bit worried about Mary, but her thoughts die down as soon as she sees Sven waiting for her. Lua apologizes to Sven for making him wait, but he smiles and replies that waiting for her got him excited, making Lua blush profusely. He then offers her his hand, asking her to allow him to escort her for the whole day, even calling her princess. How cute! Lua gladly takes his hand and they start walking together to their first stop. Sven compliments Lua's dress, telling her it looks good on her, and she admits that she had a hard time picking what to wear, while also complimenting him on his new commoner's outfit. Sven smiles widely, but also protests because Sarid scolded him for wearing something so informal, making Lua laugh. As they walk, Sven hurls Lua off the road and embraces her tightly, saving her from a carriage that almost ran her over. She blushes intensely as he holds her tightly, catching a whiff of the cologne she gifted him. Sven is exuberant after Lua asks him if he's wearing the perfume she gave him. Excited, she notices it, and he even informs her it helped him improve their relations with the Southern Islands. Finally, they arrive at the first stop, and it's none other than the bakery owned by Charlotte and her husband. Lua's thrilled to be there, wondering how Sven knew she's been wanting to visit that place for a while now. Charlotte and her husband are ecstatic to see them there, and they all have a lovely time chatting while Sven and Lua pick out some pastries for themselves. They then leave the shop and head out to the second stop while munching on the pastries they got from Charlotte's bakery. Lua notices they are heading to the theater, and Sven confesses he wants to take her to see a foreign opera singer that's performing there that day. However, Lua remembers from the time she used to go to the theater as a kid that it has a strict dress code, and Sven tells her not to worry as he's planning on taking her to a nearby boutique to dress up. He makes Lua blush hot red by telling her he thinks it's a shame though, as he loves the way she's dressed at the moment. That's when Lua notices a small boy kneeling in pain nearby. It seems he ate some cookies his mom made behind her back, which contain a berry which Lua remembers Louis telling her is poisonous. The way to counteract the poison is by ingesting another poisonous herb, but the kid is in so much pain he can't reach the medicine store. Moreover, it seems the kid is the same kid that fears Ariane, the one who was turned down by her when he needed to be healed and was healed by Lua instead, and he refuses to go to the temple because he's still afraid of Ariane. So, Lua decides to cure him herself by using her threatening powers, as she's already healed someone who ingested the herb that counteracts the berry the kid ate. Immediately, the kid's much better and thanks Lua, recognizing her from the time she helped him back then. Sven gives him their bag of pastries as he's hungry now that he's better, and he runs away joyfully. After he's gone, Sven looks at Lua with gleaming eyes, telling her it's wonderful the way she found to use her threatening power as a way to help people as well. But he gets a bit jealous after hearing her say she got her knowledge on poisonous plants from Louis. They finally get to the boutique, and Lua is really embarrassed about the outfit Sven picked out for her, fearing it will not suit her. However, he insists she comes out of the dressing room to show him. Sven is speechless after seeing how gorgeous Lua looks in her new dress, admitting this to her and making her get all flustered. He then gets closer to her, telling her how beautiful she is and how lucky he feels to be able to take her out for a date, which obviously makes Lua extremely nervous. She asks him if he's not going to change himself, and the shop owner tells him, full of excitement, that she prepared the perfect outfit, worthy of royalty for him to wear. He goes to try it on, not without first throwing a killer glance at Lua. As he is busy getting changed, the shop owner approaches Lua and asks her if she's Lua Lestat, blissfully telling her she's been wanting to meet her, surprising Lua. Turns out, this lady is one of the Viscount's former victims. She used to live on his property and he forced himself onto her even though she refused him continuously. This caused her to become traumatized and afraid of men, but she explains that thanks to her and the prince exposing the Viscount and making him pay for his wrongdoings, she's now doing much better. She tells Lua she was even able to open her own shop thanks to the alimony Charlotte split amongst all of the Viscount victims. So thanks to them, she's now flourishing, and she feels extremely honored to have them in her shop today, which makes Lua smile and tell her she's glad to meet her as well. Sven finally comes out, all dressed up. And now the one at a loss for words is Lua, who simply stares at him mesmerized at his elegant figure. She blushes, telling him the outfit really suits him. And the shop owner explains she picked both of their outfits out herself so that their colors would complement each other, also adding the detail of each of them having a white rose on them. Thus, they head to the theater. The shop owner even called a carriage over for them, which is already waiting for them outside of the shop, so that they don't have to call too much attention to themselves in the street. While in the carriage, they talk about a gift they got Shijin, and Sven thinks back on the time he got Shijin a knife as a gift, but he treasured it so much, he put it on display rather than using it. Lua then asks Sven what the program of the opera is, and it turns out to be an opera about the story of Goddess Ruche, the goddess of healing. As they arrive at the theater, Lua notices how many people are waiting for the doors to open, and Sven informs her that the singer is a popular soprano, so that's probably why. Instead of going through the main door and causing a ruckus, Sven leads Lua to a secret back door where the theater's manager is waiting for them. He leads them to their own personal booth, and the opera begins. Lua remembers how much she envied the goddess Ruche when she was a young girl, thinking how she wished to have the same power she had so she could also become a goddess. This opera was her main motivation for wanting to become a saintess, but now she realizes she's only full of revenge. The opera ends with everyone cheering, and Lua thinks it's been so long since she's had so much fun in one day. Sven then invites her to dinner, taking her hand and leading her into the extravagant inner restaurant of the theater. Lua notices there's no one else apart from the two of them in the restaurant, and Sven confesses he had the entire manager book the whole restaurant just for the two of them, telling Lua he wanted their first date to be truly memorable. They sit down to eat, and everything is to Lua's liking. And Sven again confesses he asked for the special menu to be made as he learnt her likes and dislikes from all the times they had tea together. Lua feels as though Sven's doing so much for her, so she asks him if there's anything she can do in return. Coyly, Sven tells her he was actually hoping she'd be willing to play the piano just for him, pointing at the grand piano in the middle of the restaurant. He's been wanting to hear her since he missed her performance at the Rose Festival, and Lua gladly accepts to play for him the same piece she played in the Rose Festival. The piece played in her music box, Applause of the Light of Day. The manager of the theater approaches Sven and hands him his violin, so he joins in Lua's playing, who's amazed and thrilled to have him accompany her. Finally, at dusk, they leave the theater and start walking back to the boutique to return the clothes and then head back home. Lua's a bit sad they can't stay longer together, and as if reading her thoughts, Sven asks her if she has some more time to spare for him, and there's one last thing he wants to show her. Sven takes her to a gorgeous place on the outskirts of the capital with an even more gorgeous view. He confesses to Lua that that's his favorite place of the capital as he loves the view, adding that it's his secret place. Lua then asks him if it's okay for her to be there then, but he insists he wants her to be there with him, adding that there's no one else other than him, so she should feel free to express whatever she has on her mind. He goes on, telling her that ever since she read her mother's diary, he's noticed how she sometimes gets lost in thought, so he was worried she bottled up her feelings regarding finding out about her family's cause of death. He tells her she's strong, but being able to cry and show her weakness to him will not change the fact she's a strong woman. So he extends his hand to her and invites her to break down for the first time in so long. Lua's eyes immediately swell up, and she throws herself onto Sven's arms, sobbing her heart out. She tells him she hates everyone who's involved with Father Flix, so much she wishes she could kill them with her own hands. But at the same time, she's so sad for her family, as they had done nothing wrong to deserve that fate. Sven holds her tightly, comforting her and telling her he'll be here for her until she feels better. Gosh, where can I get myself a Sven? It's already night, and Lua apologizes for having kept him until so late with her crying. But Sven brushes it off, telling her he's happy he could stay longer with her and cheers her up by telling her he also cries a lot when his brother scolds him. This makes Lua smile, and internally she realizes that maybe she might like Sven, seeing as how he's always there for her when she needs him. However, she quickly dismisses those feelings, as she thinks it'll only burden their plan and there's no way they can be together due to her social status. They finally bid farewell to each other, and Lua leaves. It's then that Shijin reappears, and Sven asks him if in his mission he was able to corroborate if the head of the operation was someone Sven suspected of, and Shijin confirms it's so. Thus, Sven decides it's finally time to prepare their attack. Back in her room, Lua's living back her day with Sven in her mind, thanking him for making her realize she can still laugh and cry like she used to. Exhausted, she falls under her bed, determined to wake up tomorrow with the strength necessary to follow along with her plan. In the Imperial Palace, Shijin is reporting the results of his mission to Sven. Sven had Shijin look into the mad researcher that Lua's mother's diary mentions, as he's been reported to have communicated with Father Flix numerous times. This researcher is often referred to as the Madman, and is currently hiding within the kingdom even though he'd been banished. Shijin suspects it's Father Flix who's arranging the researcher's hideouts, and as Sven suspected, he was the one to give the Black Rose to Luit that killed Lua's family. Shijin also apologizes for not being able to take the scientist into custody, as by the time he arrived at his last known location, the place was already vacant, which makes him think that Father Flix might have him on the move constantly. With this new information, Sven suspects Father Flix and the scientists are working together on a plan that's much worse and bigger in scale than the beast attacks, and that Lua's family was killed for having witnessed Father Flix communicating with the researcher. Their deaths might have been a sort of test run for their plan, and the poor surviving Lua was taken in by the temple to be used around. Sven is infuriated, but thankful they don't know about Lua's threatening power, as the researcher might have wanted to do horrible things to her out of curiosity. The only thing that remains is for them to find out about their true plan to stop it before it happens. So Sven sends out Shijin to look into the researcher some more. In a less serious tone, Sven gives Shijin a gift Lua and himself got for him. This immediately makes Shijin's eyes light up, and in the box there's a pair of cute leather gloves, which Sven says were picked out by Lua herself. All welled up, Shijin tells Sven it's an honor and he'll store them safely after thanking Lua. But Sven scolds him, telling him that he must use them and not store them away. Lastly, Shijin tells Sven he has some more recent information on Ariane and her involvement in Father Flix's plan, which he relays onto Sven and makes him think something might be about to go down. The researcher arrives at a new home arranged for him by Father Flix, and he's greeted by a not-so-welcoming priest who considers himself to be Father Flix's right hand. He's bitter that Father Flix treats the odd-behaving researcher with so much respect, while he didn't even tell him about his true plans. Inside the researcher's new safe house, there's a huge assortment of ingredients, which the researcher says will help him finish his poison, which he thinks will be able to make the kingdom fall into their control. Lua's waiting for Louis with a suitcase carrying the clothes Diana lent her so that she can give it back to them. Louis is a bit late, but finally arrives and apologizes for his tardiness as he was held up before leaving. Lua hands the suitcase over to him and also shyly gives him a small brown paper bag with a gift she got for Diana as a thank you for her constant help. Louis, however, is staring at her, and once he snaps out of it, he tells her it was because the last time they saw each other was when they went into the Lestat mansion, so he was wondering how she held up. But finally he smiles, telling her he notices all of her doubts on herself are gone. Lua smiles, remembering her date with Sven. Lastly, she gives Louis the paper bag, saying it's for Diana, when she suddenly springs out from behind him, surprising the both of them. Louis asks her what she's doing there, as she was supposed to spend her day with Prince Sarid. But she pouts, telling him she also wanted to see Lua and she's mad at Sarid right now, because he skipped a meal while working. After bickering with Louis for a bit, Diana turns to smile at Lua and accepts her gift. Diana tells her it's not necessary, but still gladly accepts it, and it's a cute green handkerchief. Lua tells her she got it for her while out with Sven, which immediately catches Diana's attention. She starts going off about how excited she is that Sven and her are sharing a secret love, making Lua turn bright red, but not letting her pitch in a word, while going off about how once she and Sven get married, they can become much closer to each other. This reminds Diana to tell Lua a rumor that's been going around relating a certain marriage, which leaves Lua speechless. Turns out, Garrett and Ariane are finally getting married, even though Garrett doesn't appear to be too thrilled about it. Garrett's father informs him about the marriage request sent out by the Trebaez family, which he responded to on his behalf, and the wedding preparations are already in place. Garrett is dismayed, yelling at his father to know why he didn't consult with him first. He simply tells him he answered on his behalf because he was too busy with his night work, not missing the chance to call his own son inefficient at being a knight. He then tells Garrett he shouldn't panic as he's marrying a fiancée he picked out himself, and the wedding, which will take place in a month and a half, is going to be grand because of the influence of both their names. His father then rolls away, leaving a jarred Garrett behind. Rumors about the wedding are already spreading fast, and as Lua walks along the temple, she can hear other Saintess candidates talking about it. Diana had told her that Lady Ariane had been the main person pushing for the wedding to go forward, which makes Lua suspect this may be a part of the father's plan as she remembers them talking about how Garrett's good publicity will help them carry out their plan. Shijin comes up to Lua, surprising her in a good way. Lua notices he's wearing the gloves she and Sven gifted him, and Shijin very formally thanks her for them. Lua takes advantage of this opportunity, asking Shijin if Sven is already aware of Garrett's and Ariane's engagement, and Shijin tells her he is, as he told him as soon as he found out himself. Shijin then adds that he has a message from Sven, who wants to ask her to refrain from using her threatening power for a while. Lua immediately understands it's because of the researcher being around, and agrees to this request. Shijin observes Lua trusts Sven deeply, and Lua explains that she's just like him, as Sven also saved her. Finally, Shijin bids his farewell as he's off for another mission. Ariane's back at her family home while planning out her wedding. She's happy to be there, as her parents and all of the staff there spoils her. A maid comes in, bringing her the designs for her wedding dress. However, Ariane doesn't like any of them, so she throws the designs at the poor maid and demands her to bring new designs which will suit her. Ariane's feeling very confident right now, and she's about to marry the hero of the kingdom and Father Flix's plan moving forward. So she thinks she'll become saintess in no time. A butler then approaches her to inform her that her sister, Lady Yumiya, may attend her wedding, which seems to surprise her. Lua's having tea with Sven again, making a huge effort to brew the tea as well as she can to impress Sven. She shyly asks him how it is, and he coyly replies it's so delicious he wishes to have it every day. Gosh, he's such a tease. After a moment of deep embarrassment, Lua gets over it and asks Sven about what he meant when he told her people from the Southern Islands were going to attend Ariane's wedding. Sven explains to her that it's more than that, as Ariane's sister married into a family of the Southern Islands and is currently living there. Lua has a vague memory of Ariane mentioning she had a sister, but nothing deeper than that. However, Sven informs her that Yumiya was married off to a family in the Southern Island by her father as a way to improve diplomatic relations between their kingdom. In fact, he was the first and only noble to offer up his eldest daughter for that purpose, as no one wanted to send their daughters to a developing kingdom. This makes them suspect that maybe both sisters weren't treated the same while growing up. So Yumiya might be an ally to them, or might just be another enemy, so they should stay alert about her. We see Yumiya boarding the ship to return to her natal kingdom, and she doesn't seem happy at all to have to see her sister again. The welcoming ceremony for the visitors from the south will be held a week before Ariane's and Garrett's wedding. The invitations are sparse, but Lua's been invited because she was that year's Rose Princess, and she has to prepare a few traditional piano pieces to play there for the guests. While practicing, Lua wonders about Yumiya and her relationship with Ariane. Once, when she was going to practice the piano for the ceremony in the palace, she stumbled upon Diana and Sarit, so she took advantage of the chance encounter to ask Diana about Lady Yumiya. It seems she was overshadowed by Ariane as she was much less socially active, so much so that her marriage to a family of the Southern Islands was done quite discreetly with not much of a ceremony. Sarit's suspicious of Lua's questions, demanding to know if she's planning something with Sven as well. This really unsettles Lua, so she doesn't know what to say, but Diana comes to her rescue, scolding Sarit for being so rude. Meanwhile, Ariane's in Garrett's office looking for his input on her possible wedding dresses. He doesn't look too excited about all of this, and tries pushing her off by telling her he still has work to do, so he's busy. However, instead of pushing her away, he decides it might actually be better to speak to her. He tries telling her that he feels as though their marriage is a bit hasty, citing that he still wasn't able to receive his father's blessing and he's really busy with his work as commander. Ariane's face is transformed as she asks him if he doesn't want to marry her, and he quickly takes a step back, telling her it's not that. But, of course, she takes that as a confirmation of his willingness to get married and dismisses all he said before. In the temple's laundry room, another maid informs Mary about Garrett's and Ariane's imminent wedding, and she's taken aback as it's the first time she's heard about it. This really shifts her plans on whether to tell Garrett or not about the truth on who really saved him, because if not, she fears he'll marry into a lie. The guests from the Southern Islands finally arrive, and to welcome them at the port are Sarid, Diana, Garrett, Ariane, and Lua, dressed in her Rose Princess attire. Lua notices Garrett doesn't look too comfortable with Ariane, and wonders what it might be. The group of people from the Southern Islands are led by a smiling man, Yumiya's husband, and after he greets everyone, Yumiya steps in front and greets them as well. Ariane immediately runs over to her, playing the worried sister role and telling her how glad she is to finally see her again. Yumiya smiles, telling her she's glad too, and that she'll be visiting her home during her stay for a few days. Sarid interrupts their conversation to inform Yumiya their rooms are ready if they want to rest after their long journey, and that they are going to hold a banquet for them later. Thus, Yumiya follows him to their rooms, passing by Lua without saying a word. In her room, Yumiya is holding her arm where she has a visible scar. Her husband comes in, telling her she's really beautiful and he's proud to be her husband, but she shies away, thanking him for being kind to her while describing herself as a useless daughter with an ugly scar. He comforts her, telling her in the islands they don't shame anyone for their scars, and this seems to cheer her up a bit. He asks her how she's feeling about meeting her sister again, as it seems there's a dark past between them. But Yumiya tells him that she's fine as he's there with her, also adding that this time she came with a purpose and won't let Ariane get away with everything like before. It's already time for the banquet and Lua's piano performance is about to start. Just before sitting down, she spots Sven in the crowd, who is smiling at her, and her nervousness fades away. She starts playing, being able to move everyone present but Prince Sarid, and obviously, Ariane. Well guys, that's it for now. Unfortunately, there aren't any more chapters available of the story just yet, but if you're just like me and are totally hooked on Lua's revenge arc, stick around as we'll be posting more as soon as the story is updated if you liked it. Please remember to like and subscribe as it really helps us upload more each week. Thanks for everything, and please do comment what you think will happen next. We'll be reading you. Until next time.